Well, here's something I've been looking forward to receiving. It's a little radio controlled model aircraft that I've just received from Banggood. It's the F-22 FX822. Looks great actually, and very cheap, £23 or just around that. Let's see what else you get. You've got the transmitter, which obviously will need batteries. Looks like 3 AAs. You've got a tube of glue because you've got to stick these little tail fins on. You've got the landing gear, USB charging cable and spare props in there. You've got a manual, which I'm pleased to say is in English as well. And of course you've got this great plane. 2 engines already installed. I saw some comments about these being shipped without batteries, but in fact this has got a battery inside. The other thing about this model is, which is new to me, is I've flown quite a few radio control models, including helicopters, gliders and drones, but this is the first model aircraft I've flown that's got a built-in gyro, so it'll be interesting to see how this affects flight control. Let's have a quick look at the manual. Looks pretty clear. To install the fins, install the landing gear, just pushes in, install the battery, it just connects. Right, let's get on and do that, and then I'll take a closer look at the transmitter. Now they don't actually make it very clear which way these fit, but if you look at the tail fin you can see there's a flat edge, and if you look at the slot you can also see that it's got a shape to it, and it's pretty clear from that which way that goes into the slot. This has got a curve and it's got a flat edge, so it must go curve to the inside, and you'll also see there's a slight edge on it there. It actually goes and that way in, as far as I can see. The other thing I note is it's got a slight rough edge here where it's been manufactured, and it will go in easier, I would say. It will slide into the slot better by taking that burr off. It just saves you having to force it into the slot. So obviously before you put any glue on, just try it in the slot. As I say, you've got an edge there, slight curve to it, slight curve here, so that would go in. This way. Oh, that's better. It goes in easily if you take the burr off, so it will look like that. Right, so pre-prepare them. I'll put it down there, that one's there. Got a slight burr there as well. I'll take that off. Right, just try the other one in the slot. Push it in forwards first. Yeah, that looks fine. So now a bit of glue. Left hand one, right hand. Now not too much. A little bit on each surface. In fact, I'm going to use a cocktail stick just to put a bit into there. A couple of little blobs. It probably won't hurt to put a little smear along the edges. Right, leave that for a couple of seconds while I put a bit on the other one. Right, and stick it in, as I say, with a slight cant, so that this is actually looking slightly outwards like that, as opposed to slightly inwards. Now that should slide in. It didn't go too well. I put the front end in first. Yep. Perhaps I shouldn't have left it so long. And the other one. Slide it into the front first. Yeah, that went in. That went in easier. As you can see, they lean slightly outwards. Right, I'm going to leave that 10 to 30 minutes as they suggest, and then come back and put the landing gear on. Go make a cup of tea. And finally, the last thing to do is fit the landing gear. That's easy enough, that just pushes in there. And nose wheel pushes in here. So what about that? Oh, it actually does sit and roll as well, look at that. Don't know how well it'll roll when we're on tarmac, certainly won't roll on grass. I'd imagine you'd have to throw it, but although this is made of EPP, it actually feels quite solid, and I think we'll probably take the odd bash, but it remains to be seen when I come to test fly it. The other thing I noticed is the way I've stuck these on. These are exactly the same, so they could go in this way or that way. Might look better with that little stripe at the back, but that's just a matter of taste. But perhaps they were wanting to pretend that that was the rudder. Now, the other thing I noticed about this is it's got a kind of little rubbery nose, which should help if you accidentally nosedive it into the ground, which you probably will if you're a beginner. I must say, for just £23, radio controlled aircraft and transmitter delivered from China, that's a remarkably good looking little plane. Right, so all we're needing now is some charged batteries and we're ready to roll. Right, so let's check out the battery now. Note there's an on-off switch here, and no doubt that's the aerial for the receiver in the model aircraft. Right, so battery. It will come out. Okay, so here's the battery. And here's the charger, obviously just USB type charging lead, which will go into any kind of phone charger. So I'm going to get that plugged in. A question of plugging that in there, plugging this in here, give it a charge, and there's a little red light in the USB stick here. No doubt once it goes out, it probably tells you in the manual, but I'm always too lazy to read. Once it goes out, it'll be charged. What have we got here? It's a 1S LiPo, 3.7 volts, 300 milliamps, so easy to find these kind of batteries as well. Okay guys, we are one step nearer to a test flight. I've got 3 fully recharged AAs for the transmitter, plus the aeroplane battery is now fully charged. Red light's gone out, so I'll install the battery. Right. Incidentally, that's pretty much the same battery as the V911S mini helicopter that I tested for Banggood, although this is slightly more milliamps. That's 300 compared to 240, but that battery does fit nicely into this. Right, so let's have a look at this transmitter and see how you bind, that is, make the transmitter talk to the plane. First off, controls, you've got throttle, and on this side you've only got left and right. Now, as you can see, there are no elevators or ailerons on this, so turning is achieved by increasing the power to the port or starboard props, and climb or descent is achieved by increasing or reducing the amount of throttle. And I can demonstrate that in a second because I've already tested it. On the subject of propellers, interesting to note that these actually are contra-rotating. In other words, one's going one way and one's going the other. So if and when you break one, which you maybe will, note that these are marked A and B. So if you break a B, make sure you replace it with a B, otherwise the plane won't respond the way it should. So to fly this, turn on the power on the model. You've got a blue light flashing here. I'll put it that way so I can see the blue light. Turn on the transmitter. Now the blue light stopped flashing on the plane. They say turn the throttle to the top and then to the bottom, and now you can see the light stop flashing here. So once it's bound, transmitter to model aircraft, lights stop flashing, and if I was out in the open now, you would either, if you're on a flat ground, you would either open the throttle and away it would go. And while it's flying, moving that left or right would change the speed of the port or starboard props and make it turn. And I can do a little demo of that in this next clip on my carpet. Now, I mentioned the fact that turning left and right is achieved by either putting more power to the port or starboard propeller. You can actually see it here. Obviously I'm not going to actually fly this in my lounge, but you can see if I actually move it to the right, it's actually turning that to the right, and likewise that turns it left. Well, obviously if I open the throttle, I'm afraid it's going to go, but you can see how this operates. Throttle will make it climb or descend, and left right will make it turn left or right. Oh, and incidentally, to turn off, normally the procedure for turning off model aircraft is you disconnect the battery first, but I doubt it matters very much with this. So I'm going to turn that off and then turn off the aircraft. Well, I'm ready for a test flight now. I do recommend you find a nice big open space, no people and no wind for your first test flight, because this is quite a small model and I imagine it's going to be quite lively. They don't mention range in here, but I saw another report somewhere of this kind of plane. They seem to indicate the range is only about 200 metres, but it's a small model, so if you get too far away with it, I'm afraid you're not going to be able to see which way you're controlling it. But looking forward to a test flight, hopefully within the next day or two. So that's all for now, until I can get out and fly this. Okay, well, we're ready to go, and I must admit I don't like hand launching, but here we go. Not too much wind, but I'm going to throw into the wind. That didn't go so well, but it wasn't too bad. Try again, this time with full throttle. Straight into the ground. I think the trim's wrong, that's the problem here. As you can see, it's climbing too hard, and if I close the throttle, then it's diving. At least for the moment, it's damage free. Now, some of these, what you have to do is bend the tail a little bit. That's more like it. Oh, it's on their roof. That just goes to prove you need a bit more space to fly this. The problem was there, it got downwind and it was going too fast downwind. I couldn't turn. I think I have to find that house. 3, 4, 5. Well, I got it back sometime later. No damage at all, apart from the fact I'd lost the wheels and the little rubber nose cone, as I had to fish it out from between two conservatories with a stick. I would suggest you put a blob of glue here when you push in the clips for the wheels, although as you're going to hand launch it, they're really not that useful. But what do I think? 23, 24 pounds, it's a lot of fun. It is a quick model, and would take some getting used to fly it. What I did to retrim it was I put a little down bend where the elevators would be, just a very slight bend in the EPP, and that was enough to make it fly fairly well. If it hadn't been for the wind, I probably would have done better, but that of course was the other lesson to draw from that. I did say earlier that I thought this was going to be a pretty lively model, and it's a while since I've flown any fixed wing aircraft, and so as you saw I got caught out there by the wind. But there is a lesson to be learnt from that. Don't fly it when it's a gusty wind. Pick a day when it's not windy. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have found this useful. If you have, perhaps you'd like to click on subscribe and the notifications bell. And I should be testing some more cameras and model planes soon, and you'll get notified when I do. Anyway, that's all for now. Hopefully I'll catch you guys later. So, bye for now.